Todd joins us now from Florida. Todd, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, guys. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us. Tim here with Ray. So you're a radio talk show host in Orlando, and you're a trial lawyer?
Yeah, that's a very odd profession for a conservative, but, God works in mysterious ways. But, yeah, I'm a personal injury lawyer down here, and about 7-8 years ago, kind of saw the Republicans starting to bankrupt the country and abandon the Founding Fathers' principles and values. So I ran for Congress several times, wrote a book, and been out there speaking, and been pretty active in the Tea Party movement, but trying to put very, specific solutions, to our national challenges based on our great founders' principles.
I want to give you, we want to talk about your book. By the way, is your book out now? Is it available everywhere?
Yeah, everywhere. Exactly.
It's called The Conservative Comeback. I want to talk to you about the title in just a minute. What do you think about these revelations yesterday, Friday, I guess it was, that the Internal Revenue Service has been targeting conservative groups, or, if you will, enemies of the administration? President Obama's aghast yesterday, saying he didn't know anything about this, and I don't know if he did or not, but what do you think about this whole thing?
I mean, to me, and I think probably a lot of people look at things a little different, but I look at this as just a big spiritual battle, and none of this surprises me. From the constant lies and the cover-ups so the founders were so fearful of concentrated power in governments, and from the very beginning of our country, they recognized timeless truth that the people that want to get into power, if you look at governments all over the world today, they're just evil as can be, and they destroy people's lives, and it's people that quest for power will do anything to retain and keep it. That's why you see our Congress there for 50 years. So all this is part of, whether it's the IRS or the Benghazi, all this stuff, is people that have a quest for power and fame and will do anything to destroy other people's lives and ability to have, lives with freedom. And to us, a lot of it's just a spiritual battle. So I see this as more of the same. None of it's surprising. The press will cover it up, because they're not searching for truth and trying to, bless people's lives. So,
yeah, I don't know if I don't know if the press is going to continue to cover it up or not, because they're having their phone records investigated secretly by the Justice Department now. Did you see that?
You might have a little more faith in it than me. I mean, I just see, no matter what happens, whatever the nonsense of the day is, they won't report about it. They won't, it's just one lie after another. So, I mean, I watch all the same things you guys do. And, yeah, I mean, they might try to save their own skin from time to time, but at the end of the day, they long ago since trying to, be in a dignified institution to bring truth to the people.
I agree with you, generally speaking, the state of journalism in America today, but there are some exceptions. And and the good thing is there's like your radio talk show, and there's like American Family Radio, and there's other websites that represent alternative media today, which was where most people a lot of people, at least, a lot of Americans are getting their news and information. They're not so dependent anymore on the, quote, mainstream.
Oh, absolutely.
Media.
I think you've got 1/3 of the country. I mean, really been from your programs and millions of others, that really educated themselves more so than they ever have been. And I think we're sort of getting to the point that a lot of us are talking to ourselves now and becoming more and more educated on a lot of different issues, which is good and healthy, so we can teach our kids and teach our neighbors. But we're going to have to spread the message out to a lot of people that are suffering, that are hurting, that aren't so worried about Benghazi, but they're worried about making it through the next meal the next day and offering hope and solutions, economic solutions for those people. I think once we do that, sort of like Reagan did, when you solve their economic problems, then they might care what you have to say about Benghazi or some issue that's a little more remote to their lives.
The title of Todd's book is called The Conservative Comeback: How to Win the Battle for the Soul of America. What do you mean by the conservative comeback? Define that for me.
Well, the founders were the first conservatives the world ever knew that recognized, just conservative principles. The founders, their two big hallmarks were, great reverence for God and Christianity, and, contrary to what you hear in the mainstream media, this was a Christian nation with freedom of religion for all. But it was founded on those great Christian values, and also founded on the notion that the governments were generally evil in nature, and we needed the government. We didn't want anarchy, but we're going to have a very small federal government doing very few specific things under a constitution and protect our God-given rights, and then we let the states compete against each other. In a practical matter, the founders today wouldn't be talking about what's the best national health care plan. They'd be saying, Michigan, have your health care plan. Whatever you decide to do it. Have your education plan. Florida, do your thing. And through competition of the states, you'll come up with the best ideas and the best way to solve problems, and people can move to whatever state they want. We've gotten away from all of that. The Republicans did, the Democrats did. Where Tea Party sort of brought back the notion of some states' rights and some issues. But the founders, and so the conservative comeback, the idea of the book is, well, how do we get back to these things that made the country so prosperous? And I'll say this. If you ask the kids come out of even college, the best schools today, and ask them the question, what were the values and principles that made the nation the most prosperous nation in the world, that brought millions of people out of poverty from all over the world, they'd be looking at you like they never even considered the issue. But it was, free enterprise, capitalism, the reverence for freedom, and limited government, and nobody has any ideas of what made us so. We didn't luck into this. We had these Christian values and this great reverence for capitalism and free enterprise, and that's why we bless the lives of poor people around the world, not rich people. But we don't teach this. We purposely teach. I think there's a spirit that teaches the exact opposite, that government good and somehow business is evil and business is destroying people's lives, which is nonsense. So we taught, the premise of the book was, what I really came up with was, literally, if you and I, you guys and I were sitting here today with George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and even Abraham Lincoln's, Ronald Reagan, the great leaders that believe in conservative principles, what would they do specifically to solve our nation's challenges? What tax code would they use? We have a chapter on that. How would they teach our kids? What would they teach our kids? And what kind of healthcare system would they have? What would their budget look like? So we looked at what would these great minds, do to solve today's problems. So it was a very practical book.
We're talking to Todd Long. How do you explain? We've had political whiplash in the last two election cycles. Unlike anything I can ever remember. In 2010, we had a historic change in the United States Congress. I mean, historic. The most swing shift in the numbers of Democrats to Republicans. In reaction to the Obama administration, basically, that's the only way you can explain it. And the massive expansion of the federal government, including Obamacare, people were reacting to at the polls. So it was President Obama at the time called it a thrashing that he took at the polls in November 2010. 2 years later, it's all good for President Obama and $6 trillion more of debt.
Yeah, no.
And how do you explain that?
Well, let me say this. That is just a tremendous question. And when I wrote this book and I was running for Congress at the time, all of us, I wrote this book at that time. This is the opportunity. This country, every time it gets a taste of, socialism or liberalism, even when Clinton had his first term with the Democratic Congress, hates it. It always fails. Obama totally failed, and everybody knew it. So we were all hopeful that, every freedom-loving person, every Christian in the country was going to come out there and vote him out of office. And when it didn't happen, like a lot of us, could understand, okay, I understand how they voted for him the first time, because if President Obama could literally pull off what he said, we have millions of new green energy jobs, and we're balancing budgets, and all this great stuff's happening, and innovation and education. If he could do it, now I think you and me and probably most of your listeners are like, no, he's never going to be able to do this. This is just socialism that's going to fail. But if he could do it, we could see why people voted for him, and plus the Republicans were not offering any solutions. But when it obviously failed for him to get reelected, was just such a punch in the gut for everybody, and it just shows you that, one, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, one, there's so many Americans are out there voting, completely ignorant. So many voting are just, hey, give me something for free. Whoever's giving me something for free, I'll take it. If he's going to give me free health care or free this or pay me more as a union, and it's kind of like...
So Mitt Romney was right when he talked about the 47% who would never vote for him?
Well, I don't know the exact percentage, but there's no question that's true. But I will say this. You have a lot of libertarians, for example, that didn't show up and vote, and a lot of other people that love freedom that look at the Republican Party. I'm a big fair tax supporter, a Herman K. 999 supporter. To me, you look at the affairs of the Republican Party, and I'll just give you a couple examples. After 2010, I had John Boehner and the crew come down here and say, I know we failed you guys before about these spending issues, but if you give us that second chance, well, as you know, all of us came out there all over the country and voted, gave them the House of Representatives back. So they had complete control of the budget. And instead of shutting down the government, and about a third of it should be shut down, what did they do in their budget deal with Obama? They didn't do anything. They gave him trillions of dollars in some sequestration, And so you have a lot of people around the country going, this Republican establishment is just full of non-solutions. They won't change the tax code, which is just a nightmare for the entire country. They won't fundamentally have any, like Mitt Romney didn't run on any concrete solutions that anybody could understand that were really going to help the poor or the middle class. I mean,
you think Mitt Romney was a poor candidate?
Yeah, I just think his solutions were poor, and it's not so much. I'm a big substance guy, so I'm always voting for the candidate. Give me the plan that's going to make sense. So that's why somebody tells me we're going to take and go to a Herman Cain 999 tax plan or a fair tax and make every wealth creator in the world want to come back to this country and we know small businesses, we know the government's looking out for big business, but small business owners who are dying in this country, they're never hiring full-time employees anymore. If you want to make it easy for them, don't make them pay corporate taxes, payroll taxes, all these other taxes, and say the money's yours. I can guarantee you, I'm a small business owner myself. We're going to hire, we're going to grow, we're going to be excited, but you need to come up with a concrete plan that's got some real teeth in it, I think, if the Republicans want to be successful, and get somebody like, I can understand, I'm a small business owner. This is going to revolutionize my business. So anyway, I think it needs to be a lot more substantive party. There's failures on the part of the Republican Party. I mean, do you know anybody that's got any confidence in the Republican establishment?
Well, I would say this. I hear you, and I understand the frustration. I would say this. My advice would be, if I were asked about politics, because I do know that people get frustrated. With for conservatives, they expect the Republicans to stand for conservative principles because that's what they say they do, and that's what they run on. I would just say America is a two-party system and will be for the rest of our lives. Mm-hmm. So you have to deal with that reality. If you're not willing to deal with that reality and you want to form a third or fourth or fifth party and try to get something accomplished, you're not going to get anything accomplished. You may be standing on principle, and I respect that, but you're not going to win anything, and you're not going to change anything. So I would say get involved in a party, Republican or Democrat, get inside the party and make changes from within the party. That's the way you're going to be most effective. And case in point is the Tea Party movement that sent all those guys, albeit freshmen, to can you have freshmen to Washington D.C. in 2010, and Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, Mike Lee. There's a few, and now Ted Cruz. So you see what I'm saying? Go ahead.
No, and let me tell you, that's exactly what I did. I've run as a Republican. I tried to help reform the party. That's what I suggested in my book, and I couldn't agree with you more. You're right. I mean, even the founders and Reagan, and they're practical people. They're living in a practical world, and you want to be effective. Just to be an idealist sitting there, complaining about everything, right? I mean, that's kind of an easy way out. So I agree totally, and I just think that if you look at when will the Republican Party, make its comeback, is you're going to have a leader that on economic issues has some solutions that make sense to people that are poor in the middle class that they can understand. And you also, one of the things the Republican Party doesn't do is, why the Democrats get a lot of the minority vote and now the Hispanic vote, because they're actually in the neighborhoods talking to the people. And the one thing we know about people is, they know when you care about them and when you don't. And to get some speech about entrepreneurism and we're going to raise, keep the taxes, some general stuff that doesn't apply to their lives, I mean, you got to get in there with a plan and say, I've got a plan for you. You're hurting, and not lecture them on on general things that don't really apply to them. So I think that hopefully we get a leader, a Marco Rubio type or whoever it's going to be. And I love Marco. And again, a lot of Tea Party people are down on him about immigration or on every issue. Well, we're not going to agree with everybody on everything. But I'll give you a quick little example on this immigration bill. And I wrote about him I know my immigration plan I would want to have, which would be strict borders and probably what you're very libertarian conservatives wouldn't want to have. But the issue today isn't what the plan that you or me would want to have that's ideal. The issue is, can we come up with a plan that's doing better than what we've got now? And what's going on now in this country it's not just hurting us on immigration and crime and terrorism and our budget deficits and all these other things, but it's also killing the Republicans with the Hispanic vote. The current state of affairs on immigration is a disaster for this country in so many ways. So if Marco Rubio can help lead something that's better, not perfect, and I'm not saying he can or can't, But we shouldn't be so idealistic, like you were saying, in every issue. Can we move the tax code forward? Can we move the budget better? And at least start making progress on these issues.